Oh, that's awesome. Well, hello again, Wayne. I'm so happy to be chatting with you, and thanks for coming on to Rana's Radar.
G'day. Got a strange sense of deja vu, but there you go.
Last time when we were talking, we spoke about our accents, and I said it would be so good for everybody to now see the different accents between the Australian accent and the British accent. So
Uh-huh.
it's good to have you here. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be speaking again. It's becoming a bit of a weekly thing now.
Yep. I think it's getting like that. Oh, it's good. How is it like for you when you travel to the States with the accent?
It depends where we go. If we're in a very touristy area, such as Orlando or California, we don't really have any problems. But when we start going to places where British people don't normally go, then we have a bit of fun and games then. And if we're in a restaurant, we tend to have multiple servers because they all want to talk to us, and we have the manager come
Yep.
over for no reason whatsoever. So it's I think we're a bit of a show then.
Just to hear you speak.
Yeah. But
Oh,
yeah, there
that's
you go, I
awesome. But you know
suppose.
what? I was telling you before, I'm loving your background. You've got the American flag, you've got the Holden flag as well up there as well, and then you've got the UK flag all across it. I mean, it's brilliant, mate. I love it. So first off, I know you've got an awesome classic in the back, so we're going to get to that too. You love the American car shows, and you've been to a few recently. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming to America for quite some time on holiday, and we've done a few shows in as much as we've gone to have a look around the cars. But it's getting to the point that I really wanted to get involved in the shows, not just spectate. And in life generally, I'd rather get involved with stuff rather than just going and looking at stuff. Um, So after watching bits and pieces on YouTube with various channels, I sort of made a decision that I'd buy a car in America, which would then become a holiday car instead of having a rental.
Yep.
And then it would be something that we could actually use to get involved with the car shows as well. That's what we did really. It's a bit of a strange decision maybe, but we went out and bought a car, a '79 Thunderbird.
Nice.
And the first event we did was Hot Rod Power Tour in June this year.
Wow, very nice. Well, we'll get to the hot rod power tour because I do want to know more about that. I haven't been to it, but I've heard a lot about it. Um,
Uh-huh.
what I was going to ask you is, what is it about the American car shows that draws you so much to it? To the fact that now you've bought a car in another country. So obviously there is storage involved and registration, and I'm sure other people who are in the UK or Australia and wanting to do this. Let's hear more about that first.
Yeah. Well, I've always been into Americana, so it's always sort of I'd always had in my mind that at some point we was going to do Route 66, drive Route 66, and it was also in my mind that if I was going to do that, I did not want to do it in a modern rental. It was going to be in a classic car. So I had no idea how that was going to come about, but it was always in my mind that that's what was going to happen. So now that we've got a car, that's sort of going to happen at some point. But what it is I don't really do car shows in England anymore. In the UK, I'm a little bit bored of the way they operate in the UK. Primarily because, first of all, I'm into American cars, so I mean, we've got plenty over here, but
Yeah.
you go to America, that's where they are. And secondly, American car shows car shows in America are different to over here because there always tends to be a lot of movement of the cars. There's usually a midway where the cars drive up and down,
Yeah.
so you can see and hear the cars moving, which is what I'm more interested
Which,
in
which which is the
compared to.
best part. I mean, that's what I
Well,
love about it.
exactly. I mean, you want to hear them, you want to smell them, you want to
Yep.
see them moving, what they do. That's what it's all about. But in the UK, most car shows, or well, whether it's classic or otherwise, It's more a case of turn up 9 o'clock in the morning in some field somewhere. Now you park up, you sit behind your car, you might talk to a few people, but you're not really allowed to move your car until you're ready to go home, really, 4 or 5 o'clock. And that just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I've done it in the past. I've organised car shows, but I'm done with that. Hence why we go to America now. It's much more fun.
Well, it's definitely much more fun. I mean, I haven't been to the UK car shows, but what you've described there, it is so different to what happens here. And I've been
Yeah.
to many, many different shows in a very short amount of time. And every time I've gone there, it's fun, it's moving, it's loud, it's the atmosphere is just it's amazing. And then you top that up with classic cars and engines and loud engines, and like you said, the movement of the cars, the cruises that they do, and the parades that happen. It's I mean, it makes you want to keep coming back again and again over again. So I can understand that. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to know what's behind you, what you've got there.
That's yeah, that's a '65 Mustang. It's a vintage road course race car, which I race all over the UK. Been to a few places in Europe, and it's even been to Daytona in Florida as well.
Oh,
So
nice. So
yeah,
what makes it a vintage race car? What have you done to that? Because I do have a picture of it. I'm going to share with everybody while you tell us.
okay. Well, it's a '65 Mustang for a start. There are different classes of racing that you can do, and there's sort of different sort of technical specs. So this is a very clubby spec car. It's basically parts I bought off the shelf. There's nothing too sort of technical about it. Um, so there you go. Um, it's something somebody could build quite easily, especially in America. If we can build them over here in the UK, I'm sure people can build them in America, and they do. There's plenty of them out there. Um, it's just a good bit of fun, really.
Did you build it
Did you
yourself?
build it yourself? I did, yes. I bought it back in '99, and it was a partially built rally car for doing sort of through forests and dirt tracks and that sort of thing. Yeah,
Is that what it looked like?
that's effectively how I bought it in that sort of oyster blue color. Um, and I used it. It's there being used on what we call over here a sprint. Um, we have sprints and hill climbs, which are like a timed event, usually one car at a time, up a circuit or a road course circuit, and it's just against the clock really. So I used it in that guise from '99 until 2006 when I stripped it all down and started again with it because I was then rebuilding the car as a circuit race car, which needed quite a lot of work doing to it to go from sort of one aspect of motorsport to another. So that's why it's changed to red as well. Just so I know when it is. If it's blue, I was doing sprints and hill climbs. If it's red, that's racing. So
Okay, yeah, well, red usually goes with that, doesn't it?
yeah, it's just one of those things. I was never too keen on that colour, basically because um, buses in my local area are exactly the same colour, and everybody kept saying to me, "Do I work for the bus company?" So I got a little bit fed up with that. So I thought when I rebuild it, it's not going to stay the same color. It's definitely going to change. And so it's now on the budget. It's now called post office red paint because that's the cheapest red paint you can buy.
And well, I mean, you did great. It looks magnificent. How do you know how to do this? What's your background when it comes to cars?
I trained as a mechanic and I worked as a mechanic and a service engineer for 23, 24 years. So I've always been playing with cars one way or another. And the reason why I prefer classic cars is because you can take them apart and put them back together, hopefully. with basic tools and equipment. There's no computers involved or anything like that. I'm not a computer person. I'm a screwdriver, a spanner, and a hammer person. So I can take things apart and put it back together with them. Most of them tools, one way or another. And it's usually the hammer, but
Well,
it'll
well,
come
we've
apart.
had a lot of fun just doing this podcast, you and I. So your computer skills have definitely gone up a notch in the last couple of weeks. No, I
Yeah,
mean,
there
look,
you go.
it's brilliant. So you're a mechanic, which is why you've been able to get your hands in this. What was the engine prior to what you've done here, and what have you done here now?
Okay, when I bought it in '99, it was fitted with a completely stock 302 Ford engine, which just about stayed together long enough to do all the events that I was doing at that time. But then when I converted it to a race car, I knew that I'd have to change the engine because there's no way that would either be powerful enough and certainly not reliable enough for circuit racing. So I went out and bought a Ford Motorsport crate engine, which is literally what it is. It comes in a crate pre-built. Nothing too wild. It was, people use them in street cars and hot rods and this, that, and the other. And it lasted me exactly one race before I blew it up. So I had it rebuilt and it stayed stuck, well, in that rebuilt form for about 8 races. And then on the quest for more power, as you do, sent it back to my engine builder and we stroked it to 331 cubic inches. It's still nowhere near the most powerful car out there. It's got about 420 horsepower, but it's reliable, touch wood.
And you could
And
race
it,
it.
pardon?
And you could race it.
Yeah, yeah. It's since we put it in, right. The engine hasn't been apart since 2008. It's not had any. Now, other than taking the valve covers off to reset the valves or check the valves, it has not had any internal engine work since 2008, and it's done a lot of racing.
Well, that's Ford for you, isn't it?
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going down
Why?
the Ford.
You can comment on whatever you like, sir.
Somebody's going to be beating the chest now about Ford and Chevy. I can see it coming.
Oh goodness, I love it. I love to know people's reactions and exactly their thoughts. But I mean, you've got Mustang, you've got so you don't want to say that you're a Ford guy, or but you
I'm
like the
not.
Chevys as well.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I would not say I'm a Ford guy per se. With no, and I don't drive anything else, or wouldn't own anything else because I have got some Chevys. However, having said that, I'm more accustomed with Ford mechanicals, the engines and the chassis. Um, which was one of the reasons when I bought Thunderbird in America. I knew that, when it came to it, if I needed to do any work on it, I knew my way around it already. Whereas if I bought, something in some GM product, I'd be having to learn as I went along, and I just haven't got the time to do that while we're on holiday. So I wanted something
Yeah.
that I could work on straight away. So in a way, I'm Ford biased, but I'm not pure Ford.
Yeah,
So
I can understand that because you know how to work with them and that helps you. So, and I've met a few other
yeah,
people who've mentioned the same thing because they say, all I've owned is Ford. That's how what I know to work on, and I know how it works, and I can pull it apart and put it back together. So they just don't go and entertain. But I would be curious to find out, and viewers out there as well, to see what engine is more easier to work with, whether it's a
yeah.
Ford or a Chevy when it comes to those technical stuff. So let me know, everyone. Comment away whatever you think. But now before we get to the Thunderbird, let's have a look at the car. You've got a car. What's the car you drive around now in the UK?
Well, my dad is a very boring Jeep, But other than that, I've got a '69 LTD. Ford. It's a Ford. It is a Ford LTD. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Um, that does. It's not my daily, but it does more miles than my daily. It's a bit weird. Um, yeah, I bought that in, I think it was 2018, um, because I wanted a classic car to use here in the UK, um, that I couldn't turn into a race car, because that tends to happen with cars that I buy. I tend to, strip the interior out and put a roll cage in, this, that, and the other. So I wanted something that I couldn't race. Having said that, it has been to a few motorsport venues now, and I've changed the bench seat for bucket seats just so it holds us in better around the corners. And I've uprated the suspension so it goes around corners a little bit better.
Yeah, I
So
mean, because you're a racer, you're a race driver, and we're going to show a video of you racing as well. So those things are always important to you: how it's turning, how it's handling those bends, no matter what car you drive.
yeah, well, we've got a lot of corners in the UK.
Okay.
It's yeah, our roads aren't like the US, where you got straight roads and then a few corners. Our roads are corners, and every now and again you might come across a straight. So, really we need cars that go around corners at
And
least
you've got the
reasonably well.
roundabouts. I mean, we've got roundabouts
Oh
in
yeah,
Australia as well,
we've
but I
got
mean, how
round.
many of those?
Yeah, roundabouts. That's a training exercise for the correct cornering line. That is, that's what they're put there for.
So
Don't tell anybody
why
else.
the LTD? This is 69 LTD, and they were only introduced in 65 as a
Yeah,
luxury sedan of its time.
yeah, it's like that. I mean, the primary reason was because I didn't think I could race it anywhere. So, and I like big-ish cars.
Hmm.
It's not the biggest, but it's reasonably big.
It was big for its
Um,
time.
oh yeah, he's quite big at the time. Yeah, I mean, other cars came along and they're a lot bigger now, but um, it's it does everything. It fitted all the boxes that I needed ticking for a car. It cruises great in this country at 70 mile an hour on the motorway. It does that with ease. It's plenty of luggage space for we use it. We go away for a weekend in it. We've done a couple of those things. It's just it's and I like the look of it as well. It's looks a little bit different. So
Yep, yep, and they did that well. They added some more. They made it wider. They made the grills bigger as well. So the 69, it would definitely looked different compared to the 65 and up to 69 models that they had made. Now, you've been to America many, many times, you mentioned to
mhm.
me, but eventually you had to get your own classic. You got yourself a Thunderbird.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, there's the reason behind getting the Thunderbird in the end was primarily budget. Mine's the one on the right. Um, yeah, I mean, primarily budget. In an ideal world with money no object, I'd have gone out and bought a '60s muscle car. It probably would have been a Ford. Having said that, money is most definitely an object. It is a
Especially
main
when you're
consideration.
buying from a different country. And like I said
Yeah,
before, you got to think about storage, you have to think about registration and get around all those legal things. So, yeah, we definitely want you to tell us about that because I'm sure other people would want to do the same thing as you. There are so many international visitors to the States, and many of them do like the car shows. But I'm guessing
yeah.
so many of them would want to participate, but they wouldn't know how to go about it. How did you go about having a car here in America?
Yeah, it's slightly awkward. Buying the car is reasonably easy. I've now bought two cars in America, without seeing them, just on photographs and a bit of video. So, first of all, you've got to uh, look at that aspect of it. It's not like going and having a look at a car and test driving it. You haven't got that option, unless you fly over and do that as a separate separate journey. Um, so that's the first thing, and I even giving money, actually paying the money to people was a bit of a chore because there was two or three other cars I was interested in before this one, and the guys just would not accept. I don't know how they expected to get paid for it, other than me turning up on their doorstep with cash. Um, but they just wouldn't accept any form of payment through online, through banks or whatever. So that's the first hurdle to overcome. Um, and then once you've done that, like you say, the next thing is registering the car, which for someone that is not a US citizen
Hmm.
and does not have a US address is quite difficult. There are ways around it. If you're literally just going to do it as a very much a one-off for like 2 weeks, buy a car for 2 weeks, do an event, and then sell it, and sort of that'll be the end of it. Then you can sort of fudge it a little bit if you got people out there, if you know somebody that can put the insurance on the car for you and this, that, and the other. But I needed a proper and correct
Yeah.
long-term solution because I'm intending to keep this for some time, and I'm intending to travel all over the United States with it. And obviously different states have got different rules regarding ownership and registration and insurance. So I wanted to make sure that the car was and I was covered everywhere we're possibly likely to go. And to do that, it's a bit of a drawn out process. You have to do your homework. I'm not going to go into it now because you need a whole separate program for that, whole separate
Fair
for
enough.
that.
Fair
But
enough, Wayne. What about storage? Is it just in a storage that you pay monthly, or are you keeping it with a friend?
yeah, well, in an ideal world, I'd be keeping it with friends and family. But I have got family in the US, but um, they're nowhere near each other. One's in Pennsylvania, and so part of the family's in Washington State.
Yeah, but you'd be too
Um,
afraid they might keep taking it out for a drive.
Right, yeah. If you've got garage space, I've got no problem with that. Um, yeah, I mean that is the thing. It's actually the car is actually in very good condition, so I don't want it to deteriorate. So I'm paying storage for in commercial storage premises, and because what we're doing with the car is, we're coming over on holiday, and so we're coming over for 2 weeks at a time, and we've only got 4 weeks of holiday per year, so we can only do 2 holidays a year. So literally, we pick the car up out of storage, do whatever event we're going to do, plus our regular holiday touristy stuff anyway. And then wherever we finish up, put the car in storage there, and then next time we come out, pick it up and then travel on. So like our first holiday this year, when I first picked the car up in West Virginia, and we finished up in Atlanta because that's where we finished Power Tour. So we stored the car in Atlanta, and then we was back out in October. So we picked the car up in October from Atlanta, and we did an event down in Mississippi. But then we travelled down to Florida, and it's now stored in Florida. So when we go back in May, or when we come back to the States in May, we pick it up in Florida, and I'm not quite sure where we're going to end up yet because I haven't decided. I know what car event I'm going to do, but I haven't decided where we're going to finish up because I'm now having to think 2 or 3 holidays in advance and trying to sort of get ready for different car shows or different car events and plan our journey across America, basically.
Well,
So,
it's
yeah,
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and I want everyone to understand this, and especially American viewers listening to you, Wayne, is the dedication that you put in, the work and effort that you put in to make sure that you're part of the shows, from having this car here, purchasing it in the States, and then the trouble of storing it wherever you go, but that just shows how much you're enjoying the American car shows. And that's something that I try to preach to as many people as I can. And recently, I was with Todd Johnston on a episode as well, and I mentioned the same thing, that what American car shows offers, no other place in the world offers the same atmosphere. The several shows a year, a month. every weekend. So yeah, I mean, it's just, and now we see you coming from the UK, putting this much work and effort to be part of it. So I just hope everybody understands that and appreciates it, because for many Americans, they just get in the car and it's a weekend trip and they have a good time. But for people who really want to chase it, there's so much work and effort involved. So I just had to say that to everybody, to always keep it going, you know. So if
Yeah,
everybody's in that same mentality of keeping the American car shows and the car culture alive, then it can be here for many, many years, and we hope that it
uh-huh.
is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite funny actually because we did the power tour, and then the second event we did was cruising the coast in Mississippi. Um, and they got wind. Well, they knew that we was coming from England, and they made a bit of a.
That's why I don't do these live.
No, no, that's fine because I've been waiting for somebody to knock on my garage door and say, are you talking to yourself in there, or what's going on?
That's all right. This is why I chose not to do it live, and I wanted to use a program like the podcast, all where it's just a recording, and then after that I can chop it up if there's
Yeah,
any issues or problems, and mainly would be on
yeah.
my end, having two kids in the house. So
I'm glad you've done it first because if anything goes wrong now, you've started the ball rolling.
so sorry about that, Wayne. Let's continue on.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, it was quite funny when we did the second event this year, cruising the coast. They knew that we was coming from the UK, the organisers that is, and they made a bit of a thing about with their sort of promotional um, posts on Facebook and whatever. They kept stating that like there was somebody coming from the UK, and then. On I think what day it's the Monday we was doing the parade, and somebody had a word with the TV crews there, so I ended up being interviewed by the local TV crew and the local radio station, and then from that point onwards, the following day and the rest of the week, we had people, would stop and, we'd be doing the event and people would come down and say, oh, you're the people from off the TV. We saw you on TV. And yeah, okay, whatever.
You're famous now.
Yeah, but the funny thing was as well is because I posted those interviews up on Facebook. When I got home, all my work colleagues had been passing the videos around. So I walked into work on the first day, and it's like, oh, he's the TV star in America, and so yeah, thanks very much.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome because I was at the cruising the coast as well, and I spoke to the organizers. There's a whole video, everybody, if you haven't seen it. Several videos of cruising the coast and the block parties, the registration side as well. For anybody interested in finding out more information on cruising the coast, I've vlogged my entire stay. And they did mention, I asked them, I said, how many people do we have? And they said, we've got people here from the UK, from Australia. So that was awesome. Now, you got the long haul award here for the Hot Rod Power Tour, which was before Cruising the Coast.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's like that. With the Hot Rod Power Tour, I'd known about it for years, but it never sort of crossed my mind to enter it because I had no idea how to do it or what to do or whatever. And this idea of buying a car in America and using it for events was that was miles away. But then having watched Vice Grip Garage on YouTube and
Yep.
Derek last year, he did not cruising the coast. He did Hot Rod Power Tour in a car he dug out of a field. I just thought, well, that's something I could do. And once this idea of buying this car sort of came along, I said, okay, we've got the car, let's do the event. And that sort of event really appeals to me because it's not just cars in a field or at a venue and looking at the cars as a static show. It's actually driving the cars, quite a distance, 200 or 300 miles each day between venues, which was, like I say, much more appealing to my nature. and even my wife in a way, because we don't tend to walk around too far, whether we're at a car show or just a normal regular tourist thing. We tend to drive around in the
Yeah.
car and cruise. So an event that lasts virtually a week and driving around and cars, it that ticked all the boxes. So
Well, I can
uh,
understand that because for me and my husband as well, we love driving on the American roads. So every time we'd
mhm.
come here, we'd love to just drive on those big highways because it's so different to what it is like at home. The roads are bigger. There are so many stops, and the service stops are just so clean and neat, and there's security at many of them as well. So I can understand why you'd want to drive. But of course, on your side, you like to drive, you like to race the car. So it's always a treat when you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, driving's my thing really, and that's it. So this, the power tour really fell into what I like to do. Well, I love to look at the cars as well at the show, but it was the driving aspect that really drew me to it. But the thing that I had was, I'd bought the car in February, having not seen it, I've just on photos. Luckily, I bought it from a great guy. And so he put it into storage for me in West Virginia, and we literally flew in on the Saturday, I think it was. Um, got a rental up to West Virginia, pulled the car out of storage, so that was the first time I'd even seen the car. And at that point, I'd already ditched the rental because we only had the rental car for one day.
Wow.
So it was literally a case of like, here's this car which I've never seen before, and this is what we're using for the next 2 weeks.
You haven't even
Regard,
turned it on. You haven't even
yeah,
turned it on.
yeah, it's. I mean, luckily, it started up as well. It had sat for 3 months in storage, but it started right up. It's a little bit dirty, so I took it straight to a car wash, and then the next morning, I got up about 5 a.m., something like that, before the sun came up, so that I could cut the paint back because it really needed some attention to the paintwork. So I did that, but then we went off into Tennessee and did a lot of touristy stuff, Pigeon Forge and that sort of area for a week or so, and then drove down to Memphis for the start of the power tour. So in the first 2 weeks of ownership, I put nearly 3,000 miles on the car,
Wow.
which is pretty good going for something I've not seen before. So,
I mean, it just speaks and it screams of the classic and the durability of it and how well it was because it's been sitting there. You haven't done anything to the engine. You just picked it up and it's next thing you know, you're driving 3,000 miles.
yeah, that's it. I mean, I haven't done. I don't think I've actually done anything mechanical to it, even now, really. Um, and we've done 5,000 miles in it now. So yeah, those first 2 weeks, I literally didn't have time to do anything because we'd already sort of got the different things planned, and then obviously on the power tour, you've got to do that driving to get to the next venue. So there was no time to do anything
So
if we was
how
going
does
to
it
make.
work? I've heard so much about the Hot Rod Power Tour, and most recently, I actually saw the Blue Skunk, which was the first car used for the Hot Rod Power Tour as well. So that was a real
Uh-huh.
treat. But tell me, and I know many people do know about it, but I don't. What's involved? So you start in Memphis, and how long is it? Like for how many days does it go for?
Apparently, when it first started out, apparently it used to be a whole week, 7 days, but they've shortened it now down to 5 days.
Okay.
Um, and this year, 2022, it started in Atlanta. No, it didn't. It finished in Atlanta. It started in Memphis, um, and then I can't remember where we went, but Memphis, and then we went to Nashville Speedway on the Tuesday, and then from there I think we went to Hoover, Alabama, and then it was Pensacola, Florida, and then back up to Atlanta. It was something like that. So how it basically works is we started in Memphis, and it was a massive car show, and there was an autocross and vendors and all sorts going on. Um, and then we actually left the showground mid afternoon, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to go and travel to our hotel for the next night. Um, because the following day, like I said, the next venue was at Nashville Speedway, and
Hmm.
that was about 200-mile journey, something like that. So we sort of, I took a cue from people off Facebook saying, if you can get a little bit of a head start, then you haven't got to get up so early. And we don't do early mornings. Well, I don't mind early mornings. The wife certainly doesn't do early mornings. So I needed to smooth out this holiday because it's still a holiday for us. Remember,
That's true.
um, so I had to smooth out. We're going to travel 200 miles. We don't really need to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So if we can get up at a more normal time, have a leisurely breakfast, and then join in, that's what we was doing. So each stop for us, we was already traveling a little bit on the journey to the next stop for the
Okay.
overnight. We're sort of leapfrogging a little bit just to get ahead of ourselves. Um, and then, like I say, basically, each day is another car show, but at a new event. And you've got people. There's a lot of people like ourselves doing the whole event, trying to do the whole 5 days. But then you've got other people that could only do 2 days, or maybe just one day, just local to where that event was being held.
Okay.
So not everybody is a lung hauler, as they
Yeah.
call it. There's a lot of other people coming in for each day event, which was still great for them because it's still a massive car show for them. And they haven't got the worry of having to drive 200 miles down the road. Um, but I wanted to do the whole event.
Yeah.
So as a long hauler, and luckily we managed to make it. So it was all good
Well,
fun.
and that's awesome. So every stop, everybody gathers around
Uh-huh.
for a few hours, and you get to chat and mingle and check out other classics, and then you spend the night at that location, and then the next morning you drive to the next
Yeah,
destination.
basically. Yeah, I mean each location was opening. I'm not sure what time, about 11 or 12 o'clock. And people were getting there throughout the day. Um, because obviously people were starting each day at different times, and people were traveling at different speeds, and some people were just doing it as fast as they can to get there. Other people were there's a given route, but you don't have to stick to it. You can do your own route,
Okay.
and so some people, are going off to visit some place somewhere, or stop off to see friends, or what have you. So people were literally arriving throughout the day, and quite a number of times, we was actually leaving that day's event, and people were still trying to get in,
Hmm.
because there's that many cars trying to do each day. I mean, Nashville on the second day, I think we arrived there about 1 o'clock, just after lunchtime, 1 o'clock, and we spent a couple of hours looking around and doing what you do at car shows. And so we must have left there about 3 o'clock, and the queue of cars to come in must have been, I don't know, 3 miles long at least.
Wow. Wow.
I've got a video somewhere. I took a video for a while, and I gave up with it in the end because I was running down the road with the camera still running, and we was 2 miles away from the venue at that point. So um,
Well,
yeah, it was.
you've got a little bit of a clip on your YouTube channel. So let me see if I can share that without the music. There it is.
Yeah, that's just some photos of different cars. It's a lot of cars that we don't see over in the UK, and I just wanted to put something together because everybody likes to look at their own car. So I thought I've taken lots of photos. So I'll start putting some bits and pieces on YouTube and wherever else I can put it, really. So
So, I mean, it would
yeah.
have been so fun just being on the interstate and having so many classics. I'm sure there were moments where you had them in front of you and look at that there, and you had some
Yeah,
behind you all traveling in the same direction.
exactly that. Yeah, I mean, it was some people planned it. They, they're traveling in groups and two or three or more cars. Obviously, we were sort of on our own. We didn't really, well, we didn't know anybody. So we sort of just drove on our own sort of criteria. But there's just so many cars doing it that, you couldn't drive for very far for very long before you came across another car that was doing the event, whether they'd caught you up or whether you'd caught them up. So you could either cruise along with them for a few miles and then leave them as they were, or whatever. And some people would meet up with people and spend the rest of the day cruising with them. And we did that a couple of times. We got into a convoy of cars, probably 20 or 30 cars, and we'd just cruise along with them for an hour or two.
Nice.
And then what invariably happened would be that they'd started veering off the route to go to a restaurant. I wasn't really listening to my wife telling me where I was supposed to be going. I was just following the car in front. And they would turn up into a parking lot for a restaurant, and it's like, okay, they've come here for lunch, and like we should be like, over there somewhere. So,
Well, you might as well
uh,
have lunch.
well, yeah, there was that. I'm very much for wanting to be where I want to be. So we did have lunch on the road, but I'd prefer to get to the venue, primarily because I've always got in the back of my mind that I'm in a very untested car,
Yeah.
and I was trying to allow time that if we had a problem, I could, call into an auto, a parts store, pick up parts or whatever I had to do, and I might be able to repair it and still make the venue. So I was very reluctant sort of to stop for an hour or two for lunch because that was my buffer sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, so when people pulled off into a restaurant, I sort of, okay, you go and have your food and I'll carry on, so that's
That'll
just
be
the way it
me.
works.
If I was on the tour, I would be doing the same thing, not knowing if I didn't know where I was going, which probably would be the case. I
Uh-huh.
would just be following the car in front of me. Look, you know what? He's a classic. He's going in the same place. So I'm just going to follow him. And next thing you know, the poor person will go in to have lunch, and they'll be running. Hi, can I join you?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that it happened. Yeah, that happened multiple times, and then you get the point where you got a bunch of cars going the opposite direction, and it's like, you know,
Oh, that would
okay,
be
on the tour.
scary. See, that would
Yeah,
be a scary feeling.
I mean, it happens to us in the UK when we do car tours and things in the UK as well. Car goes the other way, and think, are we going the wrong way? Is he going the wrong way? Is he on the event? You just don't know. So and like I say, normally it's because I'm not listening to the wife. Like she's telling me where I'm going, I'm not listening, and then you get the
Well, it's many hours. It's a lot of hours to be sitting inside the car and driving. So I guess be prepared for a few arguments or a few disagreements, to say the least.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. How did you like cruising the coast?
Cruising the coast was great. It originally wasn't on our radar because the second holiday this year, I wasn't going to do a car event as such. My initial plan was to just pick the car up from Atlanta, drive down to Florida, and have 2 weeks in Florida doing the normal Florida type stuff. Because what I wanted to do was have a look over the car, do some service work on the car, change the oil, and check the brakes and all the normal sort of stuff people would normally do. So that was what my original plan was to do. But then a lot of people on Facebook from the Power Tour were saying, "Oh, you really need to do cruising the coast." So okay, let's have a look, see where it is, and it was, it wasn't exactly where we was intended to go, but
No.
it was on the coast, so it was quite an easy sell for me to the wife to say, "Look, here's a good car show, and it's on the coast. It's by the beach. It's by the sea.
Yep.
It's like it was a fairly easy sell." So we went for that. So we said, okay, let's go and do that. And it really was a fantastic event. And I'm trying not to do the same events as time goes on because we're limited, but it's down as a definite possible again
Yeah,
because it's there's it works nicely for us in as much as we can do the touristy thing and just strolling around looking in the shops once you park the car up, and then you can do the cruising as well, so it's got both aspects for us again. And everybody was so great down there as well. Hospitality was fantastic. So, and
100%.
it's an area we've never been to before as well.
Yep.
So it's all positive.
Oh, 100%. Cruising the coast was absolutely brilliant. I mean, the way it was done with the different block parties, the different locations, yeah, it was just a week-long party, to be honest. A lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we again we landed on or came into the country on the Saturday, and the event supposedly officially started on the Monday. But there was the Gulfport block party on the Sunday. And what happened was, I had a guy contact me through Facebook when I was doing Power Tour, and he actually came from my hometown, which
Oh.
he lives in the States. He was from Alabama, but he was from my hometown. And we never met up on the Power Tour, but he says, he was one of those people saying, you need to do cruising the coast. So once we agreed I was doing it, we got in contact quite regularly. And basically, on when we landed, he says you need to get here for Sunday. Okay, yeah, we can try and do that. Um, because once again, I'm picking a car up at SAT for 3 or 4 months. I don't know what's gonna, whether it's gonna start, whether it's gonna drive fine. You don't know what
Yeah, but
issues you
I
might
love your
have.
attitude, Wayne. I absolutely love it because you're just so easygoing. Someone says you got to do cruising the coast. Okay, yep, all right. He says you got to get here by Sunday. You're like, yep, okay, let's go.
Yeah, there's probably something missing in this area somewhere, but no.
It's good.
But
It's good because you just follow your instincts. Yep, that sounds like fun, and it's a great attitude to have.
yeah, it's a fun thing at the end of the day. You got to have fun and got to enjoy yourself. So and like I say, cruising the coast, it seemed to be the sort of event that I could sort of get into. And so this guy, Mark, thanks, Mark. He was really helpful in giving us a lot of pointers and places to go. And when we actually came down on the Sunday, now we was actually driving down from Montgomery, so it's like a 2 or 3 hour journey for us. So we didn't actually arrive in town until lunchtime, which seems to be a bit of a regular thing with. I'm just thinking about that. Everywhere we've just been, whether it be Power Tour or on this, we arrive at lunchtime. It must be a food. Anyway, um, we arrived at lunchtime, and the roads had been closed around the area for probably an hour or two already.
Yeah,
Um, and Mark was situated, he was parked up literally right in the centre of Gulfport. And between the two of us, we managed to talk our way past the cops who'd blocked the road off. They moved the patrol car out the way for us and managed to get escorted into the closed road system of Gulfport.
yeah.
So we managed to actually park up literally right in the centre of Gulfport, and then chill. It's literally, we parked, chill, let's have a drink, which was fantastic for us. It really was.
I
So,
love that.
and
I
that's
mean,
how it
I
started.
love the fact that the police were able to just move the patrol car, make way for you to come in, and that's been one of my experiences here in the States, and several times where if you explain yourself to the police, most of the time, I mean, with my case, all the time, they've just been understanding and they've made way. Nothing is too difficult. Whereas in some other places, you cannot be, explaining or talking directly to the police as much has been my experience. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that.
yeah,
And because it adds to the whole culture, because so many of these places, of these towns that have the car shows, they rely on the tourism, the businesses rely on it as well. It keeps the economy going. For example, Somerset in Kentucky, they have the summer nights cruises, everyone, and the whole town is so involved and they're so supportive of the monthly car show because of that reason. And it's the same with Mississippi down there at the Gulf Port. So many every year they rely on this as well for the amount of tourism that it brings, and the amount of money that it brings to the economy. So yeah, no, that's it. Just adds to the whole atmosphere of car shows. The attitude of the police who are there, because they're always there at every show I've been to. There has always been a sheriff or a cop over there just to keep things and make sure everyone's safe. But it adds on to it. And and every opportunity that I get, I will talk about the things that I love about the American car shows.
Yeah, so that is one of the main differences regarding the local towns getting involved with the car shows. Because in the UK, it's very rare for that sort of event. Town centre car shows. There are a few, but not many, and they don't seem to get the idea that if you hold these events in the town, people will come in and spend money in the town. In the UK, it's just it just doesn't happen, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
it's a completely different attitude to cars. Um, so that's one of the main draws for America to us. Because we go to places, and whether we're in the car show or not, just driving around in the Thunderbird, we've noticed. We stop at a stoplight or a traffic light or whatever, and some guy, or not even a guy, anybody will pull up alongside us, and not necessarily car people will wind the window down and start saying, that's a great car and what is it, and asking us questions about it.
Yeah.
And you just don't get that in the UK. It's very rare you get that
You
in the
don't get
UK.
that in Australia either. So
Okay.
yeah, the love of cars is very big here in America, and when you combine that with the openness, the friendliness of the people, that's when you
Yeah.
get those random stranger interactions which you won't find in
Yeah.
Europe or in Australia either. So that's one of the reasons we like. Because I mean, me, I talk. If people haven't figured that out yet. I like to have a chat. So I find myself right at home, just talking to people and seeing where they've been and what they've got or what car they're driving. So
Yeah. It's chalk and cheese, really, the UK and America regarding cars and enthusiasm for cars for non-car enthusiasts, and that's my biggest thing. As a sort of example of that, the parade they had in Cruising the Coast on the Monday evening, and I think it's about a 2 mile route, something like that, and it was lined with people the whole route. Families, children, the
mhm.
whole, everybody had come out to watch the cars go by. And it was like, it wasn't just sort of a single line of people. They was two, three, four, five
Oh yes,
deep, for the whole route. And, people had got barbecues out and
yep,
grills, and they'd obviously been there all afternoon
yep.
waiting for us. Now, in contrast, in the UK, I know my local car club, we held a classic car tour a few months back now, and they was going through one village or one town, and after about 4 or 5 cars had gone through, there was people coming out and complaining about the cars going by. Now these are just sort of 60s 70s classic cars, usually British classic cars, don't make a noise. They're not big V8 engines with open exhaust or anything like that. They're Trive
So what was the
TRs,
complaint
and
for?
because there was cars going past.
On-
That's
Were
literally
the cars on the
it.
grass, on the pavement, on the
No,
footpath?
no, no, just cars driving through the town. But once somebody must have clocked there was exactly, there's some people enjoying their cars driving through a town. Well, we can't have that, we've got to complain. And so, I mean, I
Wait,
wasn't
this
there,
is this
but
is not good because we're going to get people commenting and we're going to get a backlash of you and me just talking and telling the truth. But I believe it. I do believe it. And I'm
yeah,
just
I mean,
amazed at why they would complain if it's not making any noise. It's not being parked on the grass where it's not on the footpath. Cars are on the road. That's what it's meant to be there for. But okay.
yeah, yeah, it's like I say, it's a weird thing. It really is. And again, and that's just another reason why. we love coming to America. You know, it's the enthusiasm of the people, and like I say, it's not necessarily the enthusiasm of the car
Yeah,
people. It's the enthusiasm of everybody else. And when we was doing cruising the coast, we'd turn up at a restaurant out of the area,
yeah,
20 miles, 30 miles away from where the event was taking place. But they knew about the event. The waitresses or whoever the servers would know about the event. So we'd walk into a restaurant and they'd say, "Oh, you must be doing, the event
yeah,
up the road." And then we'd end up talking, you know, to them about the car and about the event and explaining the event to them, even though, like I say, they're 30 miles up the road from where it's taking place. Now, like I say, that's a different world to the UK. You know, it just doesn't happen like that in the UK. So,
the enthusiasm of non-car people is huge. Just that cruising the
yeah,
coast, like you mentioned, everybody was there on the strip. No matter which place you went to at the golf ball during that week, you'd always find people on the side of the street with their barbecues out, with their folding chairs
mhm,
out. Outside my hotel, I met so many lovely people. I went out in the morning and I noticed, there's groups of people, and then I came back in the afternoon just before sunset, and the same people, they were still sitting there, and I just walked up to them and I'm like, "You guys are still here?" They're like, "Yep," because they just enjoyed it. They didn't have classics their own, but they just
no,
loved watching the cars and watching the atmosphere. So, and no matter where you went, there was just groups and groups of people, and everybody would be able to see that in the videos of me cruising the coast. You could see behind me, people are just sitting down, just watching the cars go by.
yeah, yeah, it really was. I mean, that's what I say because we although we went to every venue because it was spread along the coast, we didn't have time to spend the time at each venue because we left on the Friday. So we had to do our card stamping part of the event all in one day, which was also unfortunately the same day that the Coliseum opened with all the vendors in it.
Yeah,
So literally it was a case of had breakfast, went to the first stamping station, which was half a mile from our hotel, which was really lucky. Get stamped there, go and spend a couple of hours looking around all the stalls and all the vendors, because that's part of the show as well, and they might want to buy something, and as you do.
yeah. And,
Um,
and they had the
so
auction there too. They had the auction. Did you get a chance to have a look at that?
no, I never had a chance for the auction, which is probably just as well because can't really be buying another car at the moment. So
Oh, it gets very tempting watching those auctions. I get
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I steered away from the auction and the car corral. Yeah, that's probably a step too far. So, um, but yeah, so we did the vendors, and then we literally drove up and down and did all the other venues. But it was literally a case of driving, get the stamp, and drive on to the next one. And it was only when we got to Ocean Springs. That we actually sort of stopped and said, right, we've done it. We've done what we wanted to achieve, and now we can have a relax and chill out for a couple of hours, which is what we did really.
Well, you chose a great
So
spot because that was one of my
yeah,
favorite spots, Ocean Springs.
it's a very nice area. We'd actually been there the day before. We went down there. We'd spied a place I wanted to eat. So I thought we'd go there while it's quiet, before the event sort of gets there, which wasn't quite how I expected it because when we got there, it was already rammed.
I
So,
was
and
gonna say.
this wasn't even the day the event was supposed to be there. This was the day before. Okay, yeah, fair enough. So at that point, we knew that the following day was going to be busy. So yeah, but yeah, it's a lovely area. But because of that, it's like I say, it's on my list to yeah, we can go back and do that event.
Yeah.
There's more to see. There's a lot more to see. So
Oh, 100%.
it's
Well, I'll definitely be back there next year. I mean, it's one of the best times that I've had, honestly. Before we go, I do want to ask you about your Holden. I have to.
uh-huh.
I mean, the flag's right there behind you. Holden, everyone obviously was operated by GM Motors, but it's shut down now. Production has stopped, but that didn't stop you, Wayne.
No.
You've got your say something.
No, but I mean the Holden came about because I wanted a car that we can use at weekends for doing sort of if we're going away for the weekend or some sort of holiday or touring around Europe. I wanted a car for doing that rather than just a normal sort of car. So the obvious choice would have been a modern Mustang, but I don't know. I wasn't keen on that idea. And I'd always sort of liked the idea of a Monaro, which to most guys watching this is going to be a Pontiac GTO. Um, it fitted the bill. It's a V8. It's got a reasonable amount of power. It's rear-wheel drive. It sort of fitted everything that I wanted a car to achieve for what we intended to use it for.
Well,
Um,
when they were making the Holden Monaros, did you know? So we all say Monaro, and I say Monaro as well. But apparently, the actual term Monaro, which is pronounced as Moneru, comes from the indigenous people of Australia, which means high altitude. So
oh, okay.
level up in a way.
Oh,
And
okay. Oh, there
it
you
was
go.
made with the American market in mind, with the
Uh-huh.
V8 and the more solid and being a bit more powerful. They actually stopped production in I can't remember if it was 65 or so, and then they reintroduced it in the early
Uh-huh.
2000s, and
Yeah.
that's when you got. So what year is yours?
2006. Well,
2006.
actually, all the cars that are sort of in the UK, if I remember correctly, are actually built in 2005. But the way that our registration works, mine is a 2006 model. So mine is the red one. The blue one behind is actually my dad's, and his is a slightly different model to mine.
He got
So
the same car as you.
yeah, yeah. What happened there was I bought mine, and as you do, I went down to show my dad. I bought this. Took him out for a ride up the road, and his reaction was, "Well, I'm going to have to have one as well. I want one of these." So I just spent sort of 6 months finding one for myself. So now I had to find another one for him, and I couldn't get. There's not that many over here. Um, so, it's not like you just turn up down the local car lot and there's plenty to choose from. There's only sort of two or three for sale at any one time. So finding a good one, another good one.
Hmm.
Um, but luckily there's a guy on the forum that was selling that one and it had been well looked after and this and the other. It was just great for my dad really. So yeah, so he's got one as well. So
So is there Holden dealership still in the UK? No.
no, we never had Holden dealerships as such because they were marketed through Vauxhall as Vauxhall. So, which is like the Vauxhall is the GM arm in the UK. Um,
Like
so
Holden was for Australia.
yeah, yeah. So um, and even when they was new, a lot of Vauxhall dealers had no real idea about the car. They didn't know much about the car because a lot of them never saw them. They were so limited in numbers. A
Hmm.
lot of dealers never saw them. So we're lucky here in the UK that we've got sort of three or four specialist guys that have sort of tapped into that. And if you need any serious work doing, they're the guys to contact. And as per normal, there's a good forum following and on Facebook, there's groups, etc., etc., where you can get to know people and get all the info you need. Um,
So if
so
something
yeah,
was to go wrong, hopefully not with your Monaro, what would you do? Like, would you take it to one of these guys you mentioned?
if I needed to, I mean, because it's still although it's a modern car, it's relatively simple underneath. The engine, I mean, it's an LS2 engine, relatively simple. All the mechanicals are pretty simple stuff. I do most of the work myself, but if it's something a bit more in depth, especially electronic, with computer side of things, the ECU and that sort of thing, then yeah, you'd have to go to a specialist. But I've done bits and pieces on my car, and I've done bits and pieces on my dad's. And in fact, this morning he turned up with it because he got attacked by a firework of all things. So
You got attacked by a what?
a firework. So last weekend it was we have bonfire night in the UK, November the 5th. It celebrates quite strangely, it celebrates the fact that somebody tried to set fire and blow up the Houses of Parliament back in whatever it was. I know it's
Is this a national holiday or something that you and your friends have made?
yeah, no, this is bonfire night, Guy Fawkes night, whatever you want to call it. November the 5th is a big thing in the UK. So that's our prime. Well, up until the last few years, it was our primary event for fireworks. It's only
Oh, fun.
recently the fireworks been available for like Christmas and New Year and that sort of thing. You go back to the 70s, and the only time of the year you could buy fireworks was just leading up to November the 5th. So yeah,
Well,
that's
at
what
least
it
you can
is.
still buy them. I mean, they're completely illegal in Australia, so at least you've got one
Oh,
time
okay.
of the year. Yeah.
I can see it going the same way here. To be fair, and they've stopped a lot of. When I was young, when I was a kid, we had a bonfire in the back garden. My dad let a few fireworks off, and that was it. Um, and they're trying to stop all that now. They're going towards large organised events. But it was one of those, somebody in the back garden had set a firework off apparently, and it was a big rocket and it took off, but it never exploded in the air as it's supposed to, and it
Yeah.
came down and landed next to my dad's car, and then exploded as it hit the ground. So it had burnt all the side of the car. So it's sort of
Oh,
the not spoiler, but the side skirts of the car. It's
yeah.
melted the paint on that and damaged the paintwork. So I've just been spending an hour or so this morning just trying to clean up as best as I can, sort of thing. So he's not too impressed about that.
I don't think it would be, but I mean, it's fireworks. I love it. The first time that I actually was able to blow up a firework was the 4th of July here in the States
Uh-huh.
this year. And I
Okay.
was very excited. Yeah, there's a video on my Facebook where I'm just like, I'm blowing up a firework for the first time.
Yeah.
I was with all the kids in the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
I was running with the kids, like, yeah, putting it on, matching, putting the match on, and then running back. So, I mean, I love fireworks. It was a lot of fun. So, shame about your dad's car. So you were able to fix it
Yeah,
back,
I mean,
and
luckily, it's most of the damage has come out on the paintwork. I just got to try and find there's a decal that runs along the bottom of the door, and that's burnt. So I put a shout out on Facebook this morning, see if anybody's got one. But if not, I'll be able to go to a vinyl shop and get one made up or something. So it's not the end of the world. It's not as bad as he originally thought it was. So
okay,
that's
that's
good.
good.
So yeah, the Holden, lives to fight on another day. So
Yep, good. I'm happy. I mean, I always kick myself for selling my Holden Commodore Sport when I just
oh,
did
okay.
last year. Yeah, just at the middle of 2021, I sold it, and it's a shame. So we all have regrets. That's my regret right there. If I could have brought it here, then I would have done that. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But Wayne, before I let you go, I want to show a clip of you racing because I told you this last time. I really like. I've enjoyed it. I've watched it a few times, and it gives a great view of being right next to the driver.
Mhm.
Let's see.
I love all the clicking.
There you are.
Uh-huh.
So you're in the Mustang there?
Yeah, that's the Mustang. Yeah, that's the Mustang that's behind me. Yeah. Um, Go on, ask me the same question you asked me last time.
Well, before when I first last time when we spoke, I saw this and I had seen it several times, and I thought to myself, everybody's taking it so easy. They're going so slow. Like, is that how it works in real racing? That you're supposed to get to know the track first, and then after that, you hit the speeds, and we see you go right up there, up to close to 170. So yeah. And what did you say again?
Yeah, yeah, that what you just that lap you just watched there, that was the warm-up lap, and this is literally the start now. We've just started the race. So yeah, this event you're watching now, was at a circuit called Alton Park in Cheshire, or as Americans call it, Cheshire. Um, and it's a series run by a friend of mine, Bernie. It's actually called Bernie's V8 series. So it's primarily V8 cars, a lot of American cars, but he does allow the cars in as well. And we got a great mix of cars in this race. Um, so yeah, the race starts after you've done a steady lap, just to warm all the fluids up, the tyres up, brakes up, and everything. And once you're up to temperature, then you go for it, and now we're racing proper. So, and it's about this point where I'm thinking I could really do with an extra 100 horsepower, but
But you did good. You've passed several cars.
yeah, it's that sort of yeah. I, I think because of my background in what I used to, the motorsport I used to do, sprints and hill climbs, where you never had the opportunity to warm the car up, so the tyres were always cold. It means that in racing, I'm used to driving as quick as you can on cold tyres, and I prefer the car moving around anyway. So I'm usually reasonably good at the start, and then I get slower. So I need to sort of start steadier and get faster, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know what? It's fun to watch, and racing always takes, hours and hours, especially those big races. So, like I mentioned before, the thing that I love about this is just the viewpoint. I mean, me, I don't know, and many other people, but I could sit here and just watch this like for a couple of hours because the way it moves, the way you feel like you're actually there, you're racing as opposed to sitting on the stands like the spectators are. It gives a
Uh,
great viewpoint, honestly.
yeah,
I love it.
I try to set the camera up how I would like to view it, and that's the first thing I do when we get back home is I'll play the video back. So that's the view that I want, so I can see what the car's doing to a degree, how I'm reacting to it, and so everybody else just have to push up with that view.
Well,
That's the way
it's
it is.
quite thrilling, especially when you get very close to those other cars. It's almost as though we're feeling what you're feeling, being behind that seat.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame because in the second race, this event. There's two races, and in the second race, I was really, well, not really, really close to a friend of mine, and he normally runs a camera on the back of his car, and so he's facing backwards, so it would have seen my car, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't record it. It's a real shame because I was as close as you could be without touching, and maybe I did actually touch him a little bit, but it would have made really good footage, especially if we could have put the two together. My
Because
in
we would
car,
have been able to see you front
yeah.
on how you're coming, and then also get this view. Yeah, that would have been great,
And I
100%.
think I was that, yeah. Well, I think if I was that close, that all you'd have seen of my car at one point was probably the water pump or something, looking through the radiator because I was right
Well, you're
behind him.
trying to get past him. It is a race after all, so that no matter how nice you want the
That's
footage
it,
to be.
that's the thing. I know. I mean, a lot of the guys, with whatever series, whatever racing I do, I'm in two clubs and I do two lots of different racing. Everybody's good friends when you're in the paddock and chatting and whatever. It's all jolly good fun. But as soon as you get out on the track, and as soon as the lights turn to green or the flag drops or whatever,
Every man for
everybody's your
himself.
worst enemy. Yeah, everybody's a target. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's all good fun.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet it is. Oh, it's brilliant. No, that's brilliant. So when is your next race?
It'll probably be April next year, something like that. Um, the season normally starts sort of March, April, and goes on until sort of October, November. Uh, and I believe our first event is around either the end of March, beginning of April. So the car, I mean, it's up on stands now, doing some work to it, as you're always doing work to it. So
And is it
I
always
win.
for fun, the racing that you do, or have you raced for someone else as well?
I've raced. I haven't raced for anybody else. I've raced other people's cars with them. I've raced I think it was a '64 Galaxy with a friend of mine. We raced that in Belgium at Spa-Francorchamps
Okay.
in a race called the Spa 6 Hour, which is what it says it is. It's a 6 hour race, all for vintage cars, classic cars, whatever you want to call them. Um, so that's a Mustang. I'll let you off with that, but that's a Mustang. That's that's another good friend of mine, Gail. That's her Mustang. It's a Shelby GT 350 clone. It's a very quick car, very light car for a Mustang. Um, and she bought that. She normally races Jaguars, but she bought a
Jaguars.
Mustang. Yeah, Jaguar.
Say it again. How do
Um,
you say it? Say it again.
well, we just call them Jaguar, you know. But
Okay.
I know
Jaguar.
for Americans it's a Jaguar. So,
Is that how they say it?
um,
Well, it was funny because I came across a person and they had a Nissan. We say Nissan.
okay, yeah,
How do you say that in the UK?
Nissan, Nissan. I
Nissan?
used to,
Okay.
I
Yeah, well
used to
over
work
here
for.
it's fully Nissan.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
well, I used to work for Nissan. So,
Yeah, see, you say Nissan in Australia, it's Nissan. And
yeah,
he,
yeah,
anyway, as soon as the man said it, I said, "Hold on, what are you saying? Say that again." He's like, "It's a Nissan," and I'm like,
yeah,
"That sounds cool." Anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so this car, I think she names all the cars, and this one's called Awesome Annie. So there you go.
awesome, Annie, love it.
Awesome Annie. Yeah.
And what am I looking at over here? I mean, it looks so small.
It is small. I don't like small cars, but that is me in it. Um, It's
Wow,
it's this is it's based on an MG midget or a Sprite,
that's
Austin
right.
80 Sprite, but it's not. Um, it's primarily a space frame chassis, and it's got a few things that relate to a Sprite on it, but it's powered by a Lotus twin cam engine, and it's got a Ford gearbox as well. So it's a very, or it should be a very quick car, and it was built by a company fairly local to us in the late '60s, early '70s, and it was running some pretty prestigious events, both in Europe and in the UK. And in the UK, we've got an event called the Burkett, a 6 hour relay, which is you have a team of cars, so you have two or three, maybe four cars in a team, and they each get to go out within during the race. So you literally like a normal relay race for runners, you're passing the baton sort of thing to the next driver and the next car. And this car pretty much won it on its own back in, I don't know, the mid '70s, something like that. Um, and so the anniversary of that came around last year, and the guy that owns it now thought it would be a great idea if we was to enter last year's event with it, which it was a great idea, but unfortunately, it wasn't prepared very well. Nothing to do with me. Um, yeah, and so from the moment it turned up with the circuit, we had work to do on it to make it race ready. It didn't even have any tail lights, and because the race goes on into the dusk, we
Hmm.
needed to have tail lights to get through tech inspection. So I had to steal the tail lights off the guy's transporter and fit them on the back of the car so we could do that. And then we found multiple issues with the car, but still managed to get it through tech eventually. Um, but unfortunately, first lap of qualifying, it failed. It stuck in gear. The
Oh
gearbox was
no.
about shot. So that was it. That was game over, unfortunately. Which
Well,
is
at
a
least you got to
trauma.
sit inside it.
Well, yeah, it's yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. The thing is, it's so small getting in and out. I mean, I'm not the smallest person, but I'm not the biggest either. But you know, I'm used to big cars. Um, so it's funny enough. I did actually have it in my garage a few years back, and I put it nose to nose with the Mustang, and the Mustang was sitting on the ground, and that was sitting on the ground, and all I was looking at was the bumper, the front bumper of the Mustang. That I was the My head height was the front bumper of the
Wow.
Mustang. That's how low that
Wow.
is. So,
Wow.
and
So
it,
it's very shortened from the top as well. It's
yeah,
not just a
yeah.
small car, but it's actually.
But if you look at my head in the picture, my head's
Yeah, your head looks
basically
massive, by the way. I know you're wearing a helmet, but your
yeah,
head looks
yeah. Well,
very
thank you very
big
much for that.
behind
You
that
know,
windscreen.
thank you very much for saying my head looks massive. That's very
Well, it
complimentary.
does. Look at the windshield and the window. I mean, it's.
Don't worry, I shall remember that. You know, I'm just going to tell everybody that Rana thinks my head's
I'm
massive.
sorry. It's just I have no control with whatever comes out of my mouth. If I see something, I'm going to say it. But yes, it's the space looks
Yeah,
very small.
well, my head's actually pretty much touching the roof, and it's slightly canted over, like to try and sort of fit in,
Wow.
sort of thing. Because it was all such a last minute rush to get the car done. We had no time for sort of sorting out the seat properly or anything like that. So it was literally a case of the car arriving at the circuit, and then we'll try and sort it out on the day. Um, and hence, like I say, we had so many things to do. We just didn't have time to sort other issues. So we had no time to run it around to see what issues might occur. And like I say, unfortunately, the gearbox broke.
Wow.
And there was such a short amount of time between the practice sessions, qualifying, and the race. You know, I had some guys that they didn't even come with us to the meeting as such. But they got involved with helping us with the gearbox and got the covers off. And once we could see what the problem was, that was it. It was game over. There was nothing we could do with it, you know. So um, yeah,
Well, it would have been cool if it did run because being that small, it would have flew on the race.
yeah. I mean, if it's properly sorted, that's a very quick car. You know, it's so light and reasonably powerful. You know, for such a light car, you know, it will go really well, but it does need a lot of attention. So whether it'll get it or not, and whether I'll have the chance to drive it again in the future, I don't know. So, um, but because of the way that event worked, I had to sort of take over team management duties because we were still in the event. We still had other cars that were running.
Yeah.
So although that car, you know, really sort of pushed it out the way, we still had the 6 hour race to carry on with the other cars. And although I never actually got to drive, I was, you know, still involved with sorting
Yes.
out the running of it, sort of thing. So it was just yeah, it was one of those events, unfortunately, where just sort of everything went wrong. So,
Oh well, at least it was still fun, and at least you were still involved. So when can we expect you back here in the States?
we're going to be back in May. I've been having a look at events and where I want to go regarding different places to visit in America. So we're going to be back in May, and we're going to be doing cruising Ocean City in Maryland. Looks a fun event. I think it's 4 days. Um, 2 days leading up to weekend and the weekend. So that's what I'm aiming at. We're gonna start looking at hotels and everything else that goes with it, and then we'll
Well,
take it from
look
there.
into it because that's a great time of the year and it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like I say, with the racing as well, I'll be busy now with this car behind me for the next 2 or 3 months until the racing starts. So luckily, the calendars for the racing have already come out pretty much, so I can work out where I need to be with this car time wise and where the other cars need to be, etc. Um, can work my diary out. So
Well, work
it's
your diary out, but also work the camera out and get some good footage of the races that you will be doing because hopefully next year we can get you to come back for another episode and tell us all that you've been up to with those races
yeah,
and what you've been up to. So, yeah, definitely get some good footage of that. I'd love to have you back on
yeah.
again.
Yeah, and the camera's normally in the car for every race anyway, and touch wood, it tends to work. My camera tends to work because everybody else's, so, so yeah, on my channel, there's normally most of the races are on there, so yeah, I'll keep putting them up, and we'll see what else
So,
comes
for
along.
anybody who's interested in seeing Wayne and some of his races, the YouTube channel is Evo Moose. Do you want to spell that for
Evo,
us?
yeah, Evo Moose, yeah, yeah. Link, when was it? Like and subscribe, and you know the
Yep.
drill.
Like, share, and subscribe. Evo Moose, EVOMOOSE. So
That's it.
that's where you'd be able to see some footage of Wayne driving and racing, and you've got to put more up. Okay, mate?
Yeah, I mean, there is other stuff on there actually. It's primarily the racing, the in-car stuff, but there's some footage from in the Holden when we've been in Europe, going up the Alps and in Switzerland and Italy. And I think there's a little bit from the LTD, but I really sort of missed a trick really when we did the power tour. I should have rigged a camera up for that, and the sort of done some documenting of that event really, and cruising the coast really. So I think probably next year onwards, I'll get a camera set up in the Thunderbird, and just sort of put together little bits and pieces for people to see. So,
Oh, it'll be a
um,
lot of fun to watch, 100%.
so yes, see how we get on. So
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, Wayne, every time I speak to you, you're an absolute hoot. So it's always good laughs. And thank you for coming on and sharing everything that you've had with us today.
no problem. That's great stuff. Good to see you again.
Same here. Take care now.
You too. See you.
Bye.